where we're kind of talking about everything pertaining to life, but from I guess you could say like a kingdom perspective, a biblical perspective, but not like churchy, but just really looking at it from like what is really going on. And of course, you know, I'm halfway crazy, and always have a certain take and or position and perspective of what I think is relevant and what I think is appropriate, and I want to kind of share it with you and just really look and explore the full spectrum of things. One thing that we can learn as we're in 2021, just from the past days, months, years, is that you need to look at things from a full spectrum. And that's what we're going to really try to do today. And I have a very good friend of mine, a man that I've known for a long time, back in school, back in Ohio. And this is a good man, and his energy has never changed, and he's just a great man. And so we got a special guest today, and I'm going to say because this man is a very gifted man, a trailblazer in many ways, the James Ingram with us today on the Blueprint. What's up, James?
What's up, Pastor? Thank you. I
Just call me
appreciate
Bryson, man. Don't call me Bryson. Don't call me
all
Pastor,
right.
bro.
Well, I just try to respect the titles. But no, man,
Absolutely.
I appreciate you having me on here, man.
Man, I'm so glad to have you. So, unfortunately, I hate to go down memory lane. It's funny. I watch a lot of I don't know if you've ever watched things like The Breakfast Club or like Hot 97 with Funk Flex or the other guy, Ebro. I know you probably got your head in other things right now, so you're not focused on the minor things of culture, um, the more primitive things of culture. But they always got those stories like, oh yeah, we used to be way back on like at this one club, and everybody used to go there, and I would see you, blah blah blah, and I'd be like, man, it's just so myopic because like nobody else who in the world was in that place in that area, and they're acting like we were all there. Like, no, we weren't there in Harlem at the corner of 125th and St. Nicholas. You know what I'm saying? In 1998. But they like having these conversations, and it's like they're just old pals. And unfortunately, I get to replay that and have that vibe with you because you and I, we go back 20 years at least 20 years.
Wow.
And a couple special things I'm gonna share. I know we didn't talk about this in our pre-production kind of thing, but I definitely want to mention it. So, James, real quick before I get into how I know you and how kind of where we've been, tell the folks about kind of what you're doing and just kind of where they can find you and how they can connect with you.
So I'm a Los Angeles resident currently, and I attend the University of Southern California. I'm a senior. Just started my last semester today. Political science major, organizational leadership and management minor. Um, I didn't announce this yet, but I just got another internship with the mayor, so now I'm working with the mayor again.
Nice.
Um,
Garcia,
and
right? That's the
but
mayor's name?
Garcetti.
Garcetti, my bad. No
No, it's all
disrespect
good.
intended.
Um, so pretty much, yeah. I'm also a music producer.
Again, back like we never left. So anyway, so I wanted to talk very briefly just about, we had a quick commercial break that we wanted to get through. But I want to talk about how I kind of know James and how I met James. Well, school, right? So I think we went to high school together. I don't think you were at middle school with me at Litchfield. You
I
didn't go to
went to
Litchfield, did you?
Litchfield, but I was at Litchfield in the eighth. I think you were in the
I
seventh.
got you. Okay, perfect.
hmm
So, um, yeah, so we were at Litchfield for a little bit. I didn't really know you at Litchfield though. Um, I think I got introduced to you at in high school at Firestone. But one thing about James is he's very humble. When you talk about how he makes music, like James was one of the best in our city, if not in the region, if not in the state, at producing and making music. And James was one of those people I had on my hit list of my hit list, as in people that I want to be like, like I'm trying to like be better than. But man, him and his brother, they just had it on lock, and he has really done a lot in production. He's got some nice credits, worked with some big name artists. He's being very humble. James is a very humble guy, so he didn't share all that. But if you can name drop a little bit, name drop for us and let us know just the caliber of production that we're talking about here?
I will definitely start with Lil Wayne because he's the first person that I came across that was on a professional level that actually took interest in my music. But then after him and getting the production deal that I had with KO, we worked with a lot of people from Jeezy to Ludacris to Rick Ross, Mac Main, Birdman, Shawty Low, Benzino, a few more people, but I'll just keep it brief and yeah.
Keep it humble. So you're talking about a guy who has really done some really good things with music. He pursued his dream, pursuing his dream, still making it happen. And he's multifaceted. And I think it's great because we're multifaceted people. And if one thing that I can really share, and nobody can see me, is that, man, we don't got to pigeonhole ourselves into anything. We can be it all. And I think that's one thing that I love about James is that James is he's an independent thinker, always has been. And, he's diverse. Not only that, but the man is athletic, out of this world. I don't know if you still are banging on people.
That's a funny question. I hadn't hooped in maybe since this pandemic, right? But, I still work on everything, legs, running, exercising and stuff. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure if I got on let's put it like this. A year ago, I was still able to dunk. So if I stepped on the court, I hope I can still do it.
That's beautiful. Once again, James on my hill is I not able to dunk. It's just the genetics, man. God just blesses with how you want to. I didn't have the musical capacity as James, nor did I have the athletic capacity as James. But praise the Lord. God blesses us.
You were a gifted point guard.
I was
shooter.
Yeah, I was a much better shooter though. I ain't gonna lie. I was a much better shooter. Absolutely.
Yeah, to be all the way honest, I sucked when I was playing for Firestone, so I'm not going to even act like I was good.
Yeah, well, we played on the same team in high school, and so that was dope. And so, it was good times. But I just remember this brother just could jump out the gym. It was crazy. But, again, that's just basics. But here's what I really remember, man, and what I really respect you for, and I feel a total in debt to you for, just as a human being, is that James was one of the first people who really supported my church, my ministry. And I'm probably going to take you back, but James, so when I first started pastoring, the very first time I was 23 years old, and we were meeting in the movie theater at the Roland Acres Mall. And I can count at least 2 or 3 times that James was there with us supporting. And, he told me he definitely wouldn't join. He doesn't do the joining thing. I remember that conversation we had. But he definitely supported it. Man, I appreciate you doing that. And I appreciate you, just being there. Because it was just a handful of people. But, I remember on my left, up a few rows, I would see James. It was probably maybe no more than 10 of us in there. In a 150-seater theater. But it was just, I appreciate it, man, and thank you for that. And, he definitely shared a special part in my journey, as a pastor and just in my ministry. So I appreciate that, man, and definitely much love to you, bro.
All day. And it was inspirational. To see you doing that, it was of course I'm going to support this, It was a no-brainer for me, but, hey, hats off to you.
I appreciate it, man. Absolutely. Well, let's do it to it, man. Let's talk about what we came to talk about today. Enough with the, way back when. Let's talk about today and right now, man. Let's talk about, first of all, I want to talk about the state of America overall. I know that you are definitely studying political science at USC. One of the most highly recognized and, highly ranked school in the nation. I know they have very great programs in that regards too. So I know your mind is already thinking, politically. What do you perceive of where we are as a nation, and what do you think, politically, are some things that can be done to help move us forward? I know that's a loaded question, but how do you perceive it?
The way I see it, I think that's a good question. I'm trying to think.
It wasn't on the list of what I
approach it. No, it's fine. I think first, where we are politically, I think we are in between a transitioning period, obviously, with an outgoing president and an incoming president, um, where we are politically a very polarized society now. Um, I think that where we are is a place of healing, to be all the way honest. Yeah, I do know there are people who are still upset, frustrated with the way the election played out. But I think overall, the country is in a direction of healing. The second question, which was,
How do you
what was
think
the
we can
second?
move forward? What do you think is the solution moving
Oh,
forward? Or some solutions
well,
that can really help the country move forward from a political standpoint?
if we're talking about overall, I would say more than likely making sure what Andrew Yang actually proposed, which
Oh, you're one of
was the
those people?
universal basic income. Yes, I am.
UBI
Uh,
guys. Oh my
I,
gosh.
I do believe that the data that is collected from all of these internet platforms, social media platforms, or whatever the case, where these internet or these social media platforms are making a lot of money off of our data, some of that money could go back to us. I'm not saying all of it. I'm not even saying $2,000 a month or whatever he was proposing, but I'm thinking at the end of the day, there should be no individual who doesn't receive something monthly. I can't tell you what that amount should be, but I think everybody deserves something because, like, again, I'll just highlight this one thing that he said. His wife, who is a stay-at-home mother, who has to take care of his two sons, one being autistic, doesn't have time to work.
We talking about Andrew Yang, or we talking about somebody else?
Andrew Yang.
Okay.
And how do we sit here and look at that and say, well, too bad, so sad. She gonna have to find out another way. I think that we need to be more mindful when it comes to what income actually provides for the citizens, because it's obviously we're not asking to, or I don't think anybody's asking to like make us rich, but I do think having some kind of cushion would go a long way.
Now, how do you think that violates the spirit and the nature of what America's about? Because for me, when I hear that, I didn't. First of all, I didn't know you were part of the Yang Gang, and I say it in the most. Um, well, I don't want to get you kicked off your internship. So
No, no, no. I don't.
you
I
talked
don't
about what we can't talk
necessarily.
about, so I would be careful. How,
Oh no, that's fine. I'm not necessarily a yang ganger, but I am. I do hear ideas from all either candidates, politicians, whatever. I hear ideas and I say, if it makes sense, it makes sense.
but do you
You know.
think it violates? So true. So universal basic income, basically what Andrew Yang promoted, I believe originally his thing was $1,000 a month. As a matter of fact, I met the mayor of Compton a couple years ago at an event in Philadelphia, and I know that he experimented with that um, in his city. Are you familiar with that experiment that he did?
I'm not.
I don't even know the guy's name. I feel so bad, but he was like he was the first black mayor, I believe. But he was young. He was very young. He's probably our age, 30, mid 30s, late 30s, whatever. Good guy, very intelligent man, and they tried that, and they were experimenting with that for I believe like a select handful of people, um, and I never followed it to get the feedback of the studies with regards to it, but Andrew Yang was supporting $1,000 for everybody per month, and
Mhm.
I'm of the belief where I'm saying instead of giving people the money, why not just take it? Why take it from them in the first place? That's where I'm coming from. Like if why do we have to give it back? Why not just say we don't need to take it in the first place? So we don't even have to worry about it. I don't think the government should be in the position or in the role of doling out monies to its citizens in order to provide the comfort and the cushion, and or companies. Let me say that too, corporations too. So I'm also not for the level of I don't want to say entitlements, but yeah, corporate or for the individual citizen. I just feel like it's counterproductive to the American cause and what liberty and individualism is about. How do you balance that? How do you balance that too? Since you're
That's
studying
hard
different
to,
nations.
because when you think about the past history, throughout history, they've been giving money to individuals like it wasn't nothing, you know. But I want to touch on something real quick. Yang wasn't, well, I guess you touched on it, but Yang wasn't proposing that all of the money came from the government. It was more so like if Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or whoever is selling your information to individuals who want to promote, they gather your data and then they pay Facebook for your information. And if you have 1 million people pay Facebook 5 cents for your information and you don't get any of that, it's kind of like selfish at the end of the day. That's how I'm seeing it. Now, to go back to the history standpoint, a lot of people have built their wealth off of, at the end of the day, welfare, land grants. I mean, Martin Luther King talked about it, when he talked about the subsidies,
Yeah,
individuals,
the immigrants, the European immigrants.
So when we say like the basics of this country, individualism and stuff, it's like it's never really been solely individualism. There's always been some portion of socialism, if that's what anybody wants to call it. But it's a problem only mainly because inflation.
Because of inflation?
Correct.
Got you. So I hear you. Now, here's the dialogue I want to have with you, brother. With regards to that, right? So Martin Luther King was talking about how, our Caucasian brothers and sisters were, afforded opportunities for grants, and namely, it was in the form of expansion. And so there were the opportunities for them to build and to take risks in the expanding part of America. As America moved and migrated or expanded west and southern, there was definitely opportunities given to the Caucasians that black people were either withheld from and or denied the same ability to have that opportunity. And I'm with that. And I think that's different, though, only in the regards of, first of all, I think if you're going to do it for the goose, it's got to be good for the gander, one. So obviously the denying and the keeping black people away from it, obviously that's wrong. It was, it wasn't fair, nor was it in the spirit of America, the true spirit of what a more perfect union of what we stand for or supposed to stand for. However, in addition to that, though, I would say that when you're trying to promote growth and expansion and going to the quote unquote, to quote Will Smith, the Wild Wild West, and Cisco, sometimes you got to pay people to take those risks. Like how they're trying to pay people to take these vaccines right now. Like, we'll let you get a 20 sack and, here's $50 and a coupon of Popeyes. You take this vaccine. And I'm like, I don't care what you pay me. I'm not taking that GD vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so I would say that would be different from the UBI or the universal basic income, where it's just like, listen, if you exist, you get it. Now, to your point that you made, I will say this. If it's a private entity thing, or dang it, man.
Mm-hmm.
This Spectrum internet is special. Oh, no, it's still here.
It's coming back.
It's still here. All right. Boy, oh, boy. I feel like the stimulus, again, it's things that, I saw this sign, and it was talking about oppression and people being suppressed and hindered in general. It was a quote, and it said this. I was on a train one day. When I was living in a certain part of Queens, I would see it every day on the train, subway. It said, they break our legs, and then they give us crutches and expect us to be happy. And so when I think about the whole context of the stimulus, I feel it's a matter of the governments, local governments, state governments, breaking our legs by shutting down industry, by shutting down our ability to have the initiative or the opportunity to provide for ourselves. And then they say, here, take this $600 and be happy. So it's a solution to a problem that they have exacerbated with their policies and with their, what I believe, draconian measures of stifling the individual's opportunity to survive in the sake of health for everybody, which, in my opinion, is against the core of what America is about and what America represents from the purpose of individualism and whatnot. Because if you take away my ability to feed my family, to take care of myself, then you're harming me at the most basic and the most core level, especially in the regards for other people. You know, other people don't pay my bills unless it's universal basic income. Other people don't, you know, um, decide what I'm put food on my table. So that's my thoughts about it. So I'm not, you
I
know,
see.
ideally it's good, it's honorable, like I get it, people need it. But at the core, principally, I think it's a bad precedent, and it's going to open a door for, well, if we can do it once, why can't we have it every 2 months? Why not every month? Why not give people money every week? Go ahead. What about you? It's about you,
Well,
man. Don't ask me these questions.
there are, because I want to get your perspective as well. You know, you're very intellectual as well as controversial individual. So I love hearing your take on things. But I would say uh, what we, what America tends to do. Well, before I get to that, I'm gonna say how other countries are actually giving stimulus checks every month. You know, and for America to be the most power, or the United States to be the most powerful country in the world, it's ironic that we are giving the least amount when it comes, you know, when it comes to the major uh, or developed countries. But what America tends to do is wait until there's a disaster. So it's like crisis management versus risk management. And this is where I understand your point, but I think this is where I disagree when it comes to UBI. Like I said, it doesn't have to be $1,000 a month. However, you get the money, whether it's coming from the government, whether it's coming from private entities. I think if we were prepared for something like this financially, we wouldn't even have to worry about stimulus checks. If we were already getting $300 to $500 checks every month, we wouldn't be waiting on Congress to pass a bill that's only going to give us $600, and then they go on break, you know, and then they have to come back, and then it's a whole big thing. It's like, why not just take care of the people before there's a crisis, you know, and just think about planning ahead, whether even if that was like not giving the people money and putting it away, and then when a crisis happens, then you have access to it. However they have to do it. But I feel like with all these are the smartest people who are I'm not saying they are the smartest, but they're perceived as,
We hope they're the
yeah, exactly. The smartest individuals who are supposed to be running this country. And for some reason, it always comes down to when the crisis is taking place is when we have to do something about it. Homelessness, obesity, financial literacy. You can name, you can go on, and it's like, so y'all ain't learned y'all lesson over the past 50 years that crises are always going to take place, and that it's best to prepare for them. But that's how I see it.
So let me ask you this question then, because those things that you mentioned, and I think I hear where you're coming from. You know, we should be leading. We should be leading in innovation. We should be leading in noble efforts and evolutions of existence, of life. I'm with that to a degree. But the things that you mentioned, obesity, which I'm very familiar with individually. Uh, we talk about financial literacy. What's another thing you mentioned? Something else. There was a third thing that you mentioned. I can't recall right now. Um,
I don't even remember.
but those are things that are the individual's responsibility, right? So
Hmm.
I don't think that the government is designed, nor should it be responsible for providing the bulk of that. I don't think the government's job is to have a task force on obesity. Although it would be beneficial, I don't think it's that responsibility. I don't think it's the responsibility to provide a task force on financial literacy. Although obviously it wouldn't be bad, but it just goes beyond the scope of it. Like I don't think it's the government's responsibility to provide, to get involved in um, distribution of vaccination.
Hmm.
Um, Again, those are private citizen things, and the more we put on the government's plate, the more control they get, and the more the control they have over us. We're asking the government now to make decisions for our health, which I think is unfair. Even what they're doing with the shutdowns. I mean, your state, your governor, Governor Gavin Newsom, they probably have some of the harshest, I think, penalties and standards with regards to the lockdown or quarantining or sheltering in place, whatever it's called. Um, and I don't think it's the government's job to dictate or mandate my health. Women say all the time, my body, my choice. We say that where I can kill a baby, but you won't give me the opportunity to run my business or provide for my family or expose myself to whatever risk there is with my body, my choice. You know what I'm
So to
saying?
get so to give more context, what do you think is in the scope of the government's responsibilities?
Stay the heck out of my business. Um,
That's fair. That's really fair.
I think it's to protect our liberties, to protect and make sure that we have the opportunity, like I want to say it's the Constitution says life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, which is probably the Declaration of Independence. But that's the
Declaration of
Declaration of
Independence.
Independence. But the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, right? The government should protect that. That's what they're there for, to protect our security and safety in that regards. All this
But the
other
first
stuff
one is the most important, no?
to
Life.
protect my life,
How do you protect someone's life? Don't you give
life.
them information on what it will be or what will be best to preserve your longevity of life, whether it's health, mental health, physical,
So
or
the
at least incentives that will, align you with what will make you more healthy, I guess.
sure. I think they should make it so that I can define what life is to me. The question is, who defines what life is? Who defines what that looks like? And I think it's for us as individuals to define that for ourselves. Your life may look different than mine. My life looks different than the next person's. So we can't have the government defining this is what life is and we're going to protect this. Because what they're saying during this pandemic, although it's coming from a seemingly honorable place, is that we're saving lives. We're saving lives. Although, we still have the highest mortality rate with COVID, unfortunately. But even in that saving of lives, we're destroying people's livelihoods because they're determining this is what life is. Life, good life for you is you being at home, your business shut down, your career stifled, your opportunities to do what you want to do within your own legal rights is stifled because we say life is everyone at home and no parties at 10, no holidays with your family, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think the government should have the responsibility or the privilege to define what my life is that they're protecting or that they are securing.
You don't think that will make the government's job more hard to protect life in the by the definition that each individual defines life as? So if you say life for me is making sure that I can pay the bills, do my work, whatever. That's one person. But then another person is like, well, I look at life as making sure that I'm healthy, making sure I can live till I'm 95. Another person is, hey, my life is being able to party all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody has different definitions of what life is, which makes the government's job more hard to protect whatever life they choose to live.
So I think that's where freedom comes into play. And as individuals, as what America is based on is freedom, the freedom of the individual to define that. And I think if the government tries to define it, you're right, it becomes complicated. But what makes it uncomplicated is you have the ability to define what your life looks like as long as you don't violate the rights of others. So I want to protect your ability to uh, manifest your rights and help prevent other people from violating your rights. You know what I'm saying? So if they have that perspective versus defining it, just give me the box and protect my box and protect your box and protect everybody's box so they can define it legally and, within the rights of individuals of what that looks like for them. Then that becomes simple versus saying, no, it's got to be 3 meals a day, vegan, with tea at night and, a hot toddy followed.
Like, I don't disagree with that. But the reason why I say that if the government is going to, they're already in on our day-to-day lives. As a child, as an adult, doesn't matter. So if you're really looking at the root causes of the issues that we face, and I'm trying to like pace myself because my echo, but you think about like, no, you're good. The thing about it is you go to school. If you don't put your child in school, or if it's not homeschooling, then you get in trouble, So that's the first thing. Then you go to school. What are you learning? Science, math, social studies, you name it, whatever. But there is no class that teaches you financial literacy, which is one of the most important things after you graduate that you're going to have to actually learn. Credit, balancing a budget, how much to save, how much to invest, how much goes towards bills, how much goes towards your rent, how much can you, these things are important that I think technically if the government is going to be forcing us to learn something, they should include financial literacy. That's one. Two, the second thing is self-love, self-care. We don't talk about, you could like, if you ask somebody, what's the thing you love most about Kobe? What's the thing you love most about Denzel Washington, Nicki Minaj, Cardi B? You can name anybody. Most people will come up with something. Oh, the thing I loved about Kobe the most is his drive. The thing that I love about Cardi B the most is how real she is, or whatever, you name it. But then you ask them, well, what about yourself? What's the main thing you love about yourself? They're going to have to think about it. And I think that's partly because, in the homes, obviously. In this case, school, then I would think that they would put some more essential information in there that will contribute to the citizens, of the future citizens of the United States. So we're talking about Human Developmental Index, HDI, or GDP. Oh, I can't hear you. Sorry.
It's not you. It's me. You're good.
Okay.
Go ahead. Continue.
But these are things that, I think obviously it's not just a government issue. This is Board of Education issue, and they need to be in communications with each other to make sure that these curriculums that they're putting in school, that they're forcing kids to learn, should include things that are going to benefit us once we're adults.
So, I hate that I don't mean to disagree with you. Mm-hmm. But I think what you're saying is true. Hear what I'm saying. I think that logic, going on that pathway, is true. But what it feels like to me is that when we put the onus on the government, and this will lead us into, I believe, the next really segment of how I want to pivot, I think that is the responsibility of the family unit. All those things that you've described are things that we're supposed to get. Like, we're saying the school should teach this. And this is not you. These are beefs that I have because I see this on Instagram all the time. Why don't they teach you, they don't have a class for financial literacy? Like, yeah, because you're supposed to, that class is at home. They don't have a class for credit. That class is at home. They don't have a class for saving, for financial management. That class should be at home. You know what I'm saying? That's stuff that our parents, our family is supposed to give us. And we're not supposed to expect the school system, who's supposed to teach us how to do advanced algebra and trigonometry and, how to dissect a frog properly. They're not supposed to give us those things. And so I feel that we've placed more and more onus on the government to provide what we need in the local family and also as a community. And this is one of the things that I think that when we continue to put the blame on the government and the onus and responsibility, I think we give them more and more control and more opportunity to dictate how we live and how far. What you're describing is ideal. Like, it should be. We should have opportunities. Like, we had home ec, right? Or they used to.
Yep, I took home ec at Litchfield.
Exactly, right? Now, did I need to learn how to make muffins? Maybe.
But I think the concept was like learning how to cook in general, right? You know what I mean? Like being familiar with the oven, being familiar with the stove and stuff like that. And the same thing goes for financial literacy. I don't disagree with you that it should be taught at home. I agree. That was how I started it. I said, it's partly at home, but because they are forcing you to go to school. Now, if they weren't forcing you, I wouldn't be saying this, but they're forcing you to go to school. So if you're forced to go to school, you should be learning something that's essential, not just, what do you call that? Trivia. You know what I mean? Like, so another thing to point out is majority of the parents don't know it. I mean, the majority of parents can't even teach their kids. Why is that? Because they never learned it. You see what I'm saying? So it goes back to, where do you learn? You know math. You know 5 times 5. You probably know how to write an essay. You probably know the capital of, the United States. You probably know how many planets there are. You probably know what year Christopher Columbus sailed to the ocean blue. You know what I mean? Like, these are all things that we learn. But when I tell you, what's the difference between subsidized and unsubsidized? You know what I'm saying? Kids is like,
yeah, exactly.
You're 17 years old, graduating from high school, or 18. And you're going to college, and everybody's encouraging you. Go to college. Okay. I don't have the money. Oh, well, just take out a loan. Okay, you go take out a loan. You take out a loan for $8,000 the first semester, not realizing how much interest you got to pay, how long it's going to take for you to pay that back. Your parents can't teach you that. Maybe because your parents didn't go to college, or maybe because you don't. Yeah. Or that, yeah. And you think about, like, okay, so you want this 17 or 18-year-old to take out a loan that they don't know how to pay back or how much they're going to have to pay back, et cetera, which could in turn ruin their credit moving forward before they even become 21. So they're not even a full-aged adult yet, and they're already in the red. And again, I agree, part of it does need to be handled in the homes, which means the parents are going to have to take some time and try to learn financial literacy on their own. But at the same time, I mean, if you could tell me when and where I can go to the restroom, I got to raise my hand. Excuse me, Mr. Donaldson, can I go to the bathroom? I need permission to go to the bathroom while you're teaching me stuff that maybe 70% of it I probably won't even use in life.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like,
make it more essential, make it more things that are relevant and pertinent to life beyond superfluous things that don't really, the value of Christopher Columbus's date of traveling on the Nina Pinta and Santa Maria are, by all essences, or intents and purposes, irrelevant.
I wouldn't say irrelevant, but I will say not as vital or essential as, yeah, there we go.
Well, especially for us because only Christopher we acknowledge is
It's Wallace.
Wallace. You know,
Hey, cheers.
Brooklyn, stand up. I'm in Brooklyn right now. Hallelujah. Sacred headquarters
That's
of Next
what's up.
Level Church. So let me ask you this question. So let's talk about Black America. You have time, man? I know we're going beyond the scope.
Yeah, I got time.
I know as you're a representative of the mayor now.
As they say, I got time today,
I
cuz.
got time today. I love it, man. I do appreciate you folks. This is with James Ingram. We're on the Blueprint. And the great James Ingram, a wonderful mind. As you can tell, he's definitely sharp. He's definitely a man of the times. And definitely he's a well-rounded person. So we're going to talk next about Black America because I think that what we have, my problem is that we have replaced the government with the black man in our communities. In essence, we've made the government, metaphorically speaking, the baby daddy of Black America. And I say that as a black person, not in a demeaning or a denigrating way, but in a way that's like, I think this, and here's part of my problem. This is not what I'm going to say, but I think the most endangered thing in America is the black man. I think that when you look at all the efforts for diversity, you look at the demasculization and emasculization. Demasculization. What is it?
Same thing. I think they're the same thing.
Yeah. I'm saying two different words of the black man, and I say this all due respect. The feminization of men, the removal of the black man from the household by making women feel like they don't need a man or that they are equal to men and that therefore men are irrelevant in the home for the development. I think that we've placing the burden and the responsibility of what should come in the whole community, taking the man out and we're replacing it with the government. And I think that started with Brother Johnson, President Lyndon Baines Johnson. I think it went hyper with President Johnson. And to me that creates some problems. And I think that I could almost think that I can relate all the issues that we face in Black America, especially from a political perspective, on that. Now my question for you is, that's my take. Now I know that's a bit extreme, maybe controversial, but I'm not saying to be controversial, but it's just my thought. Where do you feel we are? Where do you feel Black America is right now, as a whole? Because our current president says that, we are, of course, don't have any independent thought, save for a few exceptional people.
Our president or incoming president?
Soon to be president-elect.
Okay. Well, where we are.
Where we at?
Is yeah, where we at. Is, I mean, to be completely blunt, we're at the bottom of the totem pole. And that roots way back. I think I understand why you say started with President Johnson, but I think it even goes back further to Andrew Johnson.
Exactly.
And I'm talking about 1865, once Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. Because there was a huge opportunity for Blacks to thrive. And we actually were, let me say that. We were thriving. But when Andrew Johnson became, even though he did this, it didn't stop the thriving for a while. But once he's reneged on the, pretty much on the reparations.
Facts.
That kind of it stifled our growth, because we had to give all that land that we had, that was given to us, rightfully so, we had to give it back. Now, moving forward, talk about I think it was 1898, I can't remember the date. The Wilmington Hold.
Don't worry.
Okay, so there was roughly 1890s, let's say that. There was a town in Wilmington, I believe, North Carolina. And blacks were running the city, elected officials, doing a good job. It was like, Black Wall Street before Black Wall Street. And they pretty much came in there and did what they did to the Capitol. But instead of the Capitol, it was black people in their homes and black, and a lot of people say that's where Jim Crow actually began, but I don't know about all that. All I do know is that was like the alpha of our decline. We had, so if you look at a chart, it goes like this. Sometimes it'll go back up, then we can start going back down.
There's still a tremendous ceiling. Let's keep it. There's still a tremendous ceiling. We're here, and this is still at the bottom, but we might be here hitting it and then going back down.
100%. So I think it really came down to equity. Once we start being in a position of power that seemed like we might get close to being equal, even though we weren't. Oh shoot, they gaining on our tail. So we got to do something about that. Right. What do? Destroy the community. I mean, it's easy, especially when you ain't being held accountable. Right. You know what I mean? Like, if I could kill somebody and hang somebody, and I'm not gonna get in trouble for that. Done. And that lasted up until the 70s. So, and then you think about what you just talked about as far as, let me get back to that. Take the black man out the household and stuff like that. Now, I support the feminist movement myself, but looking at the history of how feminism began.
Too much time on the West Coast, brother. You got to get back on the East Coast, brother.
But you think about no, it's all good. So I was thinking about okay, women were encouraged to get out of the house. Not just black women, but white women and whoever else. They were encouraged to, you don't have to depend on the man. You can go out, you can work and earn a living. But what does that do? Takes the kid away from the parents. Now the kid is with the board of education, wife's by herself, husband's by himself, child's by themselves. So there's a lack of family time that has been, taken away. And that's white and black. But it's more of a detriment to the black community because the level of knowledge that we had then, to be completely honest, didn't compare to the level of knowledge that, white individuals had because they had access to education, higher education, or more quality education, I should say.
We still learning how to read.
Still. I mean, literally. I mean, I'll be on Facebook and, I see somebody say, this was the realest thing ever. And it says REALIST. And I'm like,
You can't even get that right.
So.
Usage of the suffix right.
But I understand why. I won't say I understand. I kind of have an idea as to why that is. So when you take the, psychologically, I believe in epigenetics. I believe that's a real thing. And when you see
that's passed through the DNA,
trauma, you think about how the black man was defenseless whenever the master would come in and slap the wife or beat him up, and the wife is looking like, damn, my husband can't do anything for me.
Right.
And I think that carries on throughout cycles and generations. And it doesn't help when you have messages that are saying that to you as well. So you add those messages on top and you hear music, you watching movies, and the only thing that, so I'm scrolling through the radio stations. I hear, the Hispanic channels. It's like, some good music, some good film music. I speak Spanish, but not to the point where I understand every single word, but it's nothing really negative. Next, rock and roll. Okay. They ain't saying FUB, S my D and all this.
Yeah.
You go to classical channel, you go to every channel, but then when you go to, hip hop, 95.7. Yeah. Gotta eat my booty like groceries. Right. I don't need a N word. He ain't S and F your B. I'm a F your wife, and it's like I'm gonna kill you. Or it's like, how is this allowed? Because if I was a child molester, I wouldn't be able to get on the song and say, I be raping children all the time. You know what I'm saying? Or
Facts.
I be beating women's all the time. Rick Ross said he slipped a Mickey in a drink or something, and he got like, they tore him a new one.
Oh yeah, they got
You
rid
know what
of
I'm saying?
But you can destroy, murder black people, but it's not a problem. But as soon as something that happens that is culturally wrong, I mean, it's culturally acceptable to destroy black people. Is the moral of the story.
And another thing I was thinking about, I watched this TED talk. This guy was talking about it. He said, I got 100 songs that talk about killing animals. Would you play it on the radio? He said, no. He was at a radio station. He said, I got 100 songs that talks about beating women. Would you play it? They said, no. I got 100 songs that talk about raping kids. Would you play it? He said, no. I got 100 songs that talk about killing black people. Will you play it? And he said, the radio station said, well, that depends. And that, to me, was like the eye opener.
Yeah.
In reality, in this society, where are we? Well, if they're not okay with songs that talk about killing animals, but they're okay with a song talking about killing black people, it's like, what else needs to be said, you know? So I look at it as, which I think you will at least agree with me on this, is the man in the mirror.
Okay.
How do you improve the black community? How do you raise the respect that the black community receives? And I think it starts with us individually. And that's something that I came to a conclusion to in 2016 when I was doing my music. I was making all kinds of songs that was talking about similar stuff. You know, I wasn't talking about killing people. No, he's a killing them.
He's a joke
No, but
over here, man. He's literally calling them B words. That's why he's.
But yeah.
That
So yeah, I was using the language. I was talking about, you know, drugs and stuff like that. And Trump became president. I wasn't for or against it. I was just taken aback because I was like, I couldn't do that. Even with $1 billion, I couldn't do that. Why is that?
Right.
And I thought to myself, there's a respect level that we have to have. I'm from Akron. I'm an Ingram. I'm also related to all other different, you know, last names, Green, Campbell, Smith, you name it. So when you see me, I'm black. So when you see me, I represent all these things. And I think if we had that mind state that we represent so much more than ourselves, we also represent so many different communities, you know, we would have a higher level of respect for ourselves, the way we carry ourselves, the way we talk to other people, you know. And I feel like, I mean, while I do think reparations is one of the most important issues that we have between ourselves and the government, I think the most important issue that we have is self-respect, self-love, you know, because nobody else is going to do it for us. If nobody else is respecting you, there's only one person who can respect you, and that's yourself. You know, so I think that's one of our biggest.
Well, family, this has been fun. What I was saying though was that with regards to the father, particularly the black man as the baby dad, or the government as the baby daddy, and we've removed the father, the black man, from the community. We've denigrated him, we've downgraded him, we've humiliated him, we've shown him no respect, we've shown him no love, we've destroyed his spirits. We've shown him that anything but being a man, or anything but a man, is acceptable. We've put him in dresses. We've told him it's okay. You don't have to be a man. We've told him, you know, to destroy your own people. We've told him to do very bad things. When I say we, I mean the government. Um, and it creates those challenges. It creates those challenges. It creates the dynamic to where we're not able to find the self-respect like James was talking about. And so, it's very important that as we begin to look at, okay, like, how do we become repaired as a community? How does Black America move forward? I think it's gonna be critical. It's gonna be crucial that we really understand that it's gotta be. We have to become repaired economically, which is what James was talking about, which is what reparations, which is owed, which is a part of the contract that America has reneged. Probably the only reparations, agreement that America has reneged on. The most vicious and the most heinous and the most egregious act against humanity in the history of the world. They're refusing to repair, and they're still refusing to repair for that, which is a crime to me of the highest degree. But then at the same time, though, we also have to repair, to James's point, the individual. And I think that partially that comes from repairing, I think, the Black man. The Black woman is, by statistically speaking, the most educated demographic in America. The Black woman, which is shout out to our beautiful Black women. Shout out to everybody. This is not a racist thing. I'm just talking about Black and stuff because we're Black and we care about it. But my thing is, in repairing the Black man and the Black people economically and the family unit, I think we're going to be able to get the foundation, because the foundation of every nation, of every community, is the family. It's where we get all of identity. It's where we get all of our understanding from. And if we remove that, and if we allow it to continually be broken and place our emphasis on the government providing for us, then we compromise the family unit, particularly the Black family unit, which has only known, unfortunately, and has been forced to rely upon the government providing, or some other hand interfering and providing. Mm-hmm. You talk about from enslavement. You talk about like he was talking about in the Reconstruction era, we were doing fine. But when Reconstruction was over and they took away the protection of Black people by the federal, by the military, then that's when Jim Crow and these other forces were entered in and allowed our community to be destroyed. So now we have to beg for what we have the right for and what we have the liberty and the humanity to have. We have to work 10 times harder instead of just twice as hard. Mm-hmm. To be, we have to work 10 times harder to be 2 steps back. And it's so hard. And so we're fighting ourselves at the whim and at the discretion of outside hands. And then you talk about the introduction of the entitlement, where it's like, okay, you want to live here? Let's ask the government. You want to have this? Let's ask the government. You want to get educated? Let's ask the government. You want to have this? Well, let's let the government give it to us. And again, there's nothing wrong with it. Everybody needs help sometimes. But when we have all these people who we depend upon, and we can no longer find it within ourselves, we can't find it within our community, because unfortunately, the flip side of integration is the disintegration of the Black community, where you have all of our best and our most gifted and our strongest, they leave the community, they leave our endeavors to go integrate into the white world, which is their right. But what it does is it destroys the composition of the Black community and what we had together. So I guess what I'm trying to say, and I know I'm trying to wax poetic and try to sound deep because this man is just, so brilliant. I'm trying to stay on his level a little bit. But what we have, though, is a dependence on everything but ourselves. And I really feel that, one, we need to repair the black community. We need to repair the black man, to repair the black family, and also be repaired economically, which is what the government has refused to do and is refusing to do at this point in time. Now, I know I want to let you go. I know we've been on here for a minute, and I appreciate your time. Let's talk about real quick, man, because you were on fire on social media for a period of time, just going in on reparations, and I loved it, and the fight for it. Let me show you. Like, why am I just looking at me the whole time? In the reneging of reparations for black people, we were said to have 40 acres in the mule. And it's one of those things that,
let me just point something out real quick.
Point out to it, bro.
The mule wasn't actually included in the deal. It was really 40 acres. And if it was like, if needed, you could, they would give you a mule. But in the actual, what is it called? Well, let's just say the document, it states clearly what everything is. It says no more than 40 acres, which meant not everybody got 40 acres. It was just like,
depending on how many people you got, etc.
Exactly. I just want to point that out.
No, I think that's worth noting. That's worth noting for sure. So the government, has still reneged on that, and they flirt with it, and they use it as bait to get black people riled up. Here's my thing, James. Here's what makes me so mad. When I see the stimulus stuff, and I'm like, y'all can do this, but y'all can't give black people what is owed to us. Y'all can do this twice within a year, spend $4 trillion. Now, granted, it's noble, but y'all can't give black people, y'all can't cut the check for black America. To me, I feel that all of our politicians, and I'm going to say every single one of them who use that as bait, it's reprehensible to me. And I think that hopefully during this administration, we should have truth as to knowing whether or not we can trust, quote unquote, the parties that claim to be for us, depending on how they go about reparations and or the journey for them. So my question for you is this: what are your thoughts on reparations, and what should it look like? Should it be a check in the mail? Should it be college tuition? Should it be passed from paying income tax? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, because it's been so long, I'm going to refer to 4 individuals or 4 entities, including individuals that talk about this. So that's Dr. Claude Anderson, that's Dr. Malina Karenga, that's N. Cobra, and that's Dr. William Darity. And then I'll tie it all in together in conjunction with my ideas too. So the first and foremost is an apology, because reparations isn't just one thing when it comes to how long it's been. So the first and foremost thing is an apology. Next, they got to admit that it was a genocide and not just slavery. All right. Third, we're talking about monuments, things like things that pertain to the positive history of what blacks have contributed to not just America but the world. Fourth, we're talking about educational opportunities. So whether that means going to school for free, going to school half off, whatever it is. 5, we're talking about home grants. So there should be no black person in the United States without a home, whether it's an apartment, a house, period. However y'all got to make that happen, that should happen. 5th, healthcare. We got to make sure that we're covered when it comes to, what we pretty much have been forced to consume. I mean, because when you think about, I just want to touch on this real briefly.
Touch on it, brother.
So we talk about how black people eat chitlins and stuff like that. And then you look at the history of how that began with the whole masters eating what they wanted to eat, giving the scraps to the slaves and letting them do whatever what they wanted with it. And black people, as people know, shoot, we know how to like make something out of nothing. So we gonna make a dope meal out of scraps.
We put 20s on it, man.
And then after that, this is the thing though. We kept doing it, and genetically, that's not good for, your immune system. It's not good for, black men are the leaders in colon cancer, So it's like stuff like that. It's like, how does that happen? You got to look back. You got to go back,
Facts.
And so I say all that to say, we have been kind of like put in a position where we eat BS. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, we do. I'm not saying all black people eat BS, but with that said,
most black people eat BS. That's what he's saying.
We need help. We need something that, this is a crisis management thing, talking about as long as we have been put in the position, or for as long as we have been in this position where we eat what we eat and look at the stem root of why that is, I would think that healthcare would be involved in reparations.
Even though that has nothing to do with the government.
Well, it kind of does.
It's a private entity.
What is a private entity?
Healthcare. Unless you're saying they're going to give us a voucher for healthcare?
Well, the government is talking about giving everybody healthcare right now. So why can't they give black people healthcare?
Yeah, that's another conversation.
I'm only going off of what they are proposing. So if they can give people money, they should be able to give black people money. If they can give people healthcare, they should be able to give black people healthcare. You know what I mean? That's all. That's why I'm saying this.
I'm with that.
I'm really trying to get at the things that they either have done, are doing, or are proposing to the country, and take some of those aspects and say, well, what about us? I do agree that everybody should be getting certain basic, minimums. But at the same time, I think in order to make it equal, you're going to have to give black people more. I mean, it's what we're owed anyway. So if there's, okay, let's say white people are here. I don't know. Well, actually, let's say this. Asians are here. Asian Americans are here. White people are here. Hispanics are here. And then black people and Native Americans are like right here. If you give all of us the same thing, the gap doesn't decrease. Everybody just moves up at the same time, but the gap is still there.
Right.
So you have to give the people who are at the bottom, especially if they deserve it, what they're owed. And that way, that is the only way the inequities will
That's powerful,
diminish.
Man. I love it. So you want an apology? You want an acknowledgement? You want monuments? I'm not mad at that.
But again, all of that is not my ideas. I just I study
this is the James Ingram
the reparationists.
That's what we're.
I love it.
I need a parade.
I need Escalade limos.
Yeah. Every white person in Brooklyn to come by and say they're sorry to me.
Oh, did you ever see the Marianne Williamson video where she's in, I don't know if she's in a church or something, but it's a little disturbing. But she says, I need all the white people in the room to stand up right now. And then they stand up. You saw it?
I saw that.
What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Man, so here's my challenge. First of all, let me say this. I agree 1,000% in reparations. I think we are owed it. I wouldn't go as extreme as the James Ingram plan, but I definitely do believe from an economic standpoint that needs to happen as far as cutting the check and potentially from an income tax perspective. I would say that. But to answer your question, I'm not a fan of white guilt. I think that most of the people all of the people who are alive had nothing to do with slavery. Although they benefit from being the majority, although they benefit from the effects and the economic and whatever economic increase happened due to slavery, I don't think it's right to place the burden of white people. I mean, the burden of that guilt on the white people that are alive today. So,
I'm with you.
from an idyllic perspective, to say we represent the ancestors, sure, but I'm not a fan of just going around making people, feel like they gotta apologize to me.
Hmm.
Um, you know, because here's the thing, James. It's like even in the black community, right? You jump higher than me. You know, your acumen, although you put in way more hours in music production than I have, you were just better at it than me. There's always going to be inequities, and I think that's a part of life.
Hmm.
Um, you know, your hairline still looks intact compared to mine, and inequities. And what can I do? It's just the way life is. And it could be because of my Negro diet, as you called it, though. So it could be that. But uh, that's part of life. And I think there's always going to be people who are up more than others. And then when you add the fact that we are the demographic minority, whereas there are far more empowered white people than blacks, it's going to create a level of what we call white privilege, which isn't evil. It's just the reality of the numbers game, like how it is in sports, athletics. You know, is it black privilege that the NBA is dominated by African Americans, or is it just the fact that in that regards athletically, they're just predisposed to being more dominant? Is it black privilege, or is it just the way it is? I mean that's not a great example per se, but you get the gist. The gist. So, to answer your question, I'm not a fan of that, and I think it's ridiculous. And this whole making white people feel bad for privilege is wrong, because when Mexicans and Hispanic people take over, is it going to be Hispanic privilege? I mean, you probably see that a little bit more, in California, the dominance of that culture. But when it becomes a global thing where their numbers overtake, and then they begin to, overtake in politics and in the things that, where power is generated, are we going to start blaming Hispanic people then? Say, move out the way, white people. We need a new person to blame, and it's Hispanics. They took our jobs. They took our music. They took our culture, and they took J-Lo. I couldn't think of a person, but you get what I'm saying, though. What do you think, man? It's
I
like the
agree with you.
1619 program and critical race theory. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
I'm with you, man. I don't believe that the blame should be placed for what could have happened to our ancestors, because another thing to think about is not all of us have actual proof that we actually are descendants of slaves or those who were enslaved.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then it's like some white people are actually trying to help. You know what I mean? So for me, I feel like the beef, if you want to call it that, is between, again, the government that exists today that allowed it to happen when it was happening, and those who are descendants of those who were enslaved. That's where I believe the tension, not even tension, but the debate needs to be between those two entities. The black community, or as some people call them, I don't refer to it as this, but some people call it American Descendants of Slaves, ADOS or ADOS, But I just feel if you are a descendant of a slave, because there are people who died from the time that they were freed all the way up until today, people who have died fighting for reparations.
Facts.
Not from just regular white people who just everyday working class citizens, but between themselves and the government. And I don't know why there's always this problem when people say, I'm not going to pay for anything that happened over 200 years ago. I had nothing to do with, and all of this. I'm like, but you do it all the time.
That's fact.
You started with the reparations that I know about from 1890s when the Italians were hanged, and like within a year they got reparations. the descendants of those who were hanged. And Italy actually said that they threatened the United States to go to war with them if they didn't, and it was like this big thing. So from there, and then you talk about the Native Americans, you talk about the Japanese, you talk about, I mean, really it just goes on and on. Jewish people who, the Holocaust didn't even happen here. They're getting all kinds of.
How does that work?
And I applaud all of them for being able to manage to get their reparations. Like, that's dope that you were able to get, it. My thing is, why is it a problem that you pay for Black reparations when we've been paying everybody else's reparations?
Right. It's always a problem. It's always like, oh, we can't. Oh, it would be different. Oh, it would cost so much. It's always a challenge when it comes to the Black community. Again, and this is what they do with us, man, and that's how they use us in the government, which is why I really feel that, these political parties can't say they have the interests of Black community without addressing the root of Black dysfunction and the Black, challenges that we've had and the wrongs done by Americans. It's not enough just to say, oh, slavery was wrong. If you know it was wrong, and if you are in power to affect, and to represent the government that was the author and the perpetuator of this wrong and this evil, horrific, ungodly experience, then you should be in a position to rectify that. And you should know that these people are impacted by that. But you don't care. You use it as a ploy. You want to do everything you can. They're saying we want to make marijuana, decriminalize it as a part of reparations. And I want to give them the biggest middle finger I can in the spirit. Because I'm like, what does selling weed and making it not a crime have to do with reparations? These people say anything. It's like, oh, we want to give people like a tuition towards college. I'm like, all right, that's cool, but everybody don't go to college, number one. And that still doesn't have anything to do with the fact that people who are beyond the age of college who are still impacted by it. I'm like, listen, these are wonderful things, but just do what's right and make it happen. And this is my goal, and I'm going to let you go. I don't want to hold you. I feel like I'm abusing your time. With this introduction of this new administration, and this is something I would challenge people to read. Now, again, I feel like as a spiritual leader, as a pastor, that I feel like I'm beyond a political party. Right? I feel like I represent God. That's what I really believe. I feel like that's my job, and that's what, my calling says about me, right? In the sense of the views that I should have and I should promote. They should be beyond conservative or liberal. They should be beyond Democrat or Republican. It should be, this is what God is about. This is what aligns with righteousness, especially from a biblical perspective. Now, with that being said, boy, I had a great point and I lost it given that disclaimer. What was I going to say? It was going to be so good. Beyond it. Yeah. And with this new administration, it's supposed to be so Black. And all is about Black people. Everything Black this, Black that. Oh, we need the Black vote. Let me wear Timberlands, Kamala Harris. Let me, come out and do all these Black interviews. We bring these Black and or urban entertainers to talk to you. And let's say it's all about Black people. And let's look at the policy and legislation that's produced. And I can tell you this. This is why I don't believe a thing what these people say, particularly and unfortunately from a Democratic perspective, because they've been the ones in power and had the favor of Black people for at least 60 years now and have yet to do anything significant towards the Black cause, in my humble opinion. But if you look at the Democratic agenda for their platform in 2020, right? You'll look in it and you'll find the part where they're talking about minorities and how they deal with dealing with, racism and injustice, right? It is probably, if you divide it into parts, let's say that section, we're going to divide it into 10ths, right? So it's 10 parts. 1/10 is devoted to the Black plight. 5/10 is devoted to the plight of Native Americans. And namely giving them restoration and reparations as far as land, as far as economic things. Now, again, Native Americans were wronged and there was injustices. But my thing is this: Native Americans have been getting land. They've got reservations. They have rectification far more than the so-called Negro in America. But yet we're still doing 5 times as much in 2021. And all we're giving black people is we're just saying, we're just going to make sure that, we can defund the police and reform it. Come on, man. Like, they literally just gave half of Oklahoma to Native Americans. Like, literally within the last month.
Yeah.
And again, get what is rightfully yours. But when it comes to black people, the Muslims, Nation of Islam, they've been trying to get half of California for the last 70 years. Now, that's probably not going to be likely to happen, but it's the principle is that, all right, don't give us California, give us Wyoming. Kanye went to Wyoming. Let's make that for Negroes. You know what I'm saying? Why not?
Yeah.
But anyways, it just shows you they say things, but if you look on the paperwork, now this is online. This is not something I'm making up.
No, I've read it. Where it talks about the proposal to study reparations. I don't know if you study it. Even though this is why I was a little tripped out on it, is because HR 40 is to study and develop a proposal for reparations. So it was a little odd that I saw that platform and it only said study. I didn't like that. I'm not gonna lie. But the gist of it is to really piggyback off of what you were saying. Native Americans, if they said that they were going to give Native Americans, $100 million every year, I would not be mad. And because obviously we know why. But at the same time, looking at history, I've been reading these books, man, from like 1600s, bro, 1800s, 1700s, where they talk about the Native Americans that we know of today didn't look like the Native Americans we perceive today. So people like us,
more like us.
They called them the black California, or the dark. I'm sorry, they called it the dark California. Or
this is true.
What was the other guy's name? Mountain. I can't remember, but I got a whole Google Doc that I just took excerpts from each book and I categorized it by the year. It starts from like 1300 all the way to like late 19th century, because at USC they have like multiple libraries, but they have this antique library where you can go and you can read books that are like from old times. You got to put on gloves and all this stuff, but it's right there. And they talk about like Negroid, like undoubtedly a Negro. Like these are the things that they're saying about Native Americans. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So technically, the reason why I say one of the things we should have as a home is because we don't know whether or not we were part of the community that is referred to as Native Americans, or if we're a mixture of Native Americans and Africans, or if we're just solely African. But either way, if you steal somebody's land, you give them land back. If you steal somebody, you got to give them their life back. And that includes land. You know what I'm saying? So either way, shout out to the Native American population of today for being able to obtain what they have obtained from the government. But when we say reparations for Black people, we're talking about Black people who were descendants of either slavery or a person who had to go through Jim Crow. Because my dad was born in 1940. He wasn't born a slave, but he was in Alabama. He was born in Jim Crow. You know what I'm saying? So it's not. That's another thing a lot of people get mixed up, is that it's only about slavery. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's so much more. But yeah,
I love it. James Ingram, thank you so much, man. I appreciate
my brother.
We'll have to pick this up part 2 about reparations at a later time and date, man. I think what you're doing is great. I think your perspective, your mindset is definitely needed. And I'm just grateful, man. And I'm excited, honestly, man, for what you're doing and how you're progressing and just your efforts, man, to grow and to expand your consciousness and, pursuing what is passionate to you, man. I think it's beautiful to see. And I'm rooting for you and all that you do, even though it's for Democrats in Los Angeles.
Well, I'm working for a Democrat. However, I have been considering joining the Green Party. Nothing concrete. I just want to put
You
that
said
out
joining
there.
what?
The Green Party.
Really?
As small and insignificant as they are, morally, I'm gonna say this, and then we can, they are what the Democrats have become. So they were the originators for going green. They were all about feminism, equality, just the basic stuff that you think the Democrats, a lot of people think that the Democrats are like so on point with. It's like, where did these ideas originate? And we overlook the Green Party because they don't have a large following. So I'm not saying I am joining the Green Party, but I have been considering it.
Wow.
I just want to put that out there because I'm not a diehard Democrat. I'm just
independent thinker, man. Like, why do we have to label ourselves?
exactly.
There
we
the
go.
person we think is the best candidate is who we vote for, and it happens to be a person on one side or the other. Unfortunately, so it is what it is. So I feel you, bro. Trust me. I believe I'm with you on that, man. Well, in your green endeavors, definitely wish you the best and all that, man. Folks, listen, follow this man. Get with him. Instagram, Twitter, _James Ingram. If you need that fire musically, as well as the intellectual fire. Obviously, the man is researched. The man is doing some great things. Connect with him, _James Ingram. A worthwhile voice, and I think he's just really just so in tune with what's happening today. And so it's been a privilege, James, to have you with us today on this episode of The Blueprint. It's been a tremendous honor just to catch up with you. I think the last time we talked was probably about 4 years ago. I think we were talking about some foolishness with the president then at this time. But, man, it's just so good to connect with you again, man, and just to pick your brain. So I will holler at you. Folks, listen, stay locked into The Blueprint. Much love to you. You know it is. It goes down. We're just looking at things from a different perspective, providing a different lens. Leave comments. Let me know what you think. Subscribe and do all that stuff that helps us be able to be more famous. So next time I can provide James a platform, a platter of the food that we're no longer supposed to eat. And all that good stuff. Thanks again, bro.
Hey, I love you, man.
Much love, bro.